Alright, so me and my friends are idiots who make these bad choices by going back to old games that we already quit. This time we went back to WoW for the War Within expansion. Now I'm gonna be honest, WoW was my first MMO, so I do have a bit of a soft spot for it. I enjoyed the overall lore and the world of Warcraft. And honestly, with channels like Platinum WoW, I've learned a lot of little niche things that I wouldn't have learned just directly through the game. Well, I think without going out like way out of my way. But what I'm getting is that I just do like Warcraft, and that's probably why I have a soft spot and why I'm more willing to go back to this game here and there. So with the War Within being out for a month, I thought I'd talk about my time going back. So something great about games like World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy is the fact that all these expansions are hard resets. This allows new players or returning players to experience the new content along with almost everybody else. I say almost because they did the stupid thing where you had to pay for early access, which is really just code for, hey, you gotta pay $100 to play this game on the actual launch. Me and my friends are those idiots who did buy that. For me, it's like, I gotta buy the expansion, I gotta pay for a month of sub anyways, so I guess I'll just pay the little extra and get all the extra perks. Also in these games, they tend to do like a pre-patch event. And the purpose of these is to just give you a ton of XP and some gear on the way to kind of prep you for the new expansion. And because of that, we definitely did sub a little early, because me, for example, I quit Dragonflight when I only had one character at cap, so I had a lot of characters behind that needed some leveling, and if I wanted to try out different classes this expansion, I was gonna have to level them, so I figured, well, I'll do it with the pre-patch event. So going back a little bit here, talking about that 3-day early access, for the people who didn't buy the Epic Edition, which for the rest of this video, I'm just gonna refer to as the poor people, and you'll see why. On that launch day, a lot of people who bought the Epic Edition, they started making pre-made raid groups just to go around and PK the poor people. It's pretty messed up but funny at the same time. And it's funny because you know that the people who did get like PK'd and farmed a ton, they're gonna be the people who buy next time. Now PvP is fully toggleable in town, but if you flag on PvP, you do get extra experience. So as long as those people get to a town and switch, they can still enjoy the game. But still, you know, it is what it is. Something I should also mention is anybody who buys the expansions, they do get a free level 70 character boost. So this does ensure that anybody who purchases the game can just go straight into War Within, which really just goes hand in hand with the fact that it is a hard reset. Now, if there's one thing I really hate about WoW, it's how reliant add-ons are to the game and community. Like when I resub, the first couple hours of it is me setting up add-ons. While yes, the UI in the game has gotten better, there's still a lot of room for improvement, and a lot of the UI changes are trying to simulate add-ons, which is good. I do think they need to do that. But there are still add-ons that the community deems as mandatory. Like if you're raiding, you're expected to have deadly boss mods, which mods like this are in a weird loop because it's like we use deadly boss mods to make the raid easier, and because it's easier, they had to make the raids harder and more complicated, and then they make it more of a mess, and they make it such of a mess that you have to rely on DBM to tell you what to do. Ideally, I would like the UI just to be improved a bit, and then also just completely remove add-ons from existing. I know saying that might piss a lot of people off, but I do think that is for the better of the game, because then the devs can stop making things around mods. I think it'd also make better raid design choices then after that too. Taking from Lost Ark, for example, every boss has very unique tells that you can see what's going on, while in World of Warcraft you really do have to expect DBM to tell you kind of what to move. And now add-ons have gotten to the point where like you need a installer to just put them into your folder, because then you can update them all at once as opposed to individual downloads like in the old days. But man, it's annoying having more software on my computer. Like I try to minimalize. TLDR, I hate add-ons. Now to finally talk a little bit about my experience playing the game. Overall, the world and zones are actually visually good for what World of Warcraft can offer. I enjoyed them overall. Like, yeah, the final zone wasn't that great because, you know, I've seen spider zones before, but overall they were a very standard questing experience. I don't think there's really any new quest designs. It's just that they used quests from all over different varied parts of the game. Now going into it with very mid gear, it was actually pretty smooth. Things did die relatively quick, which is a pro and a con at the same time. The pro being that after the first character, who really wants to take a long time doing this? The con being that I don't really get to practice like how my character feels with the rotation that much when things die quick. Well, Blizzard really focused on the latter, I think, and that's why after the 3 days that, you know, all the poor people started to be able to play, they actually buffed the world so things took longer to die. Which led to those people feeling that they were being further punished for not buying the Epic Edition, which is kind of true in a sense if it's all about getting to the level cap fast. I will say that every zone had like 1 to 2 broken quests, which is really annoying. There were workarounds for some of them, but yeah. I don't know what they were doing during all these play tests and betas and alphas, but it wasn't testing the game. Because it's not like these are obscure bugs, these were like literally just progression blockers within the quest. But overall, the classes felt good. Demon Hunter basically felt the same, a little bit nerfed in my opinion. Paladin felt really good. Survival Hunter actually felt really fun. I got tempted to try the Scaly because I was told it was like basically a casting Demon Hunter, but I wasn't really feeling it. But overall, this is kind of like my issue with MMOs is I always tend to enjoy a lot of alts and I like playing them. Which segues me onto my next topic. I assume pretty much everybody who watches this video is probably a Lost Ark player, so I can easily explain it like this. They added a thing called the Warbands, which is basically just rosters in Lost Ark. Things like reputations and currencies are basically now all shared across your roster. On top of that, you can actually get a Warband tab within your bank. This allows you to easily trade and swap things out between your characters. Now, it doesn't avoid soulbound things, so things that are bound to that character are forever still bound to that character. They're unfortunately not Warband bound. But when you do certain contents in the game, you will actually get Warband bound gear. Now, this gear generally is going to be a little bit lower item level than whatever your highest item level is in the game. This also applies to items from World Quest as well. So then when you get things that are Warband bound, you can put them in your Warband storage, and then you can just pull them out with any other character that you want to. Additionally, every character you have leveled up to level cap increases your experience boost by 5% up to 25%. Overall, I see Warbands as one of the greatest things Blizzard has ever done to World of Warcraft in a very long time, as it really eases up the effort you have to do in alting. Like, you can keep alts at a pretty comfortable spot behind your main. Now, in the last section, I did mention that there were world quests, so let's talk about weeklies a little bit. There is quite a lot of weekly content to do. Raiding is weekly. There's going to be a weekly wave defense mission, which I absolutely hate. There's also the theater one, which I'm not a big fan of. And every other zone has their own kind of weekly that you do, where you do like world quests and then you unlock the weekly. And what a lot of these weekly things are going to do is they're going to give you a chest at the end. These chests are going to have keys, and these keys are going to allow you to open up the chest at the end of a delve, which is going to allow you to get the gear that you actually want from it. A delve is a kind of endgame content that we'll talk about a little bit later. But if you're the type of player who doesn't want to play delves, then you don't really have to do much of this world stuff or weekly stuff, to be honest. And then on a side note, the world quests are nothing unique. A lot of them are going to be things that are recycled from the MSQ or side quests throughout the zones, or they're going to be things like rock climbing, racing, or oh yeah, there's one that's like basically just Pokemon Snap. So, endgame, here's kind of the bigger one. The War Within is designed to give you 4 routes to progress your character. On a very similar track, we have Delves, we have Mythic Plus, and we have Raiding. And the 4th would technically be PvP because you do get PvP gear, but yeah, this doesn't really apply that well to PvE to my knowledge. Now, previously you can only get set pieces from Raiding, but now they made it so you can actually put set bonuses on gear from Mythic Plus and also Delves. It might just be any gear, I don't know. But regardless, now it is designed that you can play any combination or all of these types of things to gear up and not feel like you have to do the others. And so the main reason me and my 2 friends came back is because, hey, Delves is a scalable 1 to 5 man content that doesn't really require the holy trinity of tank, healer, DPS. So the idea of logging in with whatever we want to and just playing the game and progressing just felt like a great idea. Because instead of dealing with anywhere from up to 2 to 37 other assholes, now it was just us. And initially, yeah, we were having fun. We were having a blast with us. It felt really good. It felt challenging yet fair. We still had to pay attention, otherwise we were gonna die. But like one night mid-run, they added a hotfix, and suddenly we got an extra life, which was really weird because that never happened before. And then everything was really just chunking us down. They were doing a ton of damage, and they were living like 2 to 3 times as long. And that's how we found out that they were doing hotfixes. And they would do hotfixes for Delves like 3 times in 3 days. And that was just really demotivating because Delves that we were doing days ago at a lower item level, we were now taking longer to clear. And because the changes was, hey, pretty much just let's make everything live a lot longer, it didn't make it any more fun. Now, I want to say Delves weren't perfect. Like if you were playing a class with very long cooldowns and you had to do a lot of kicks for spells and you just didn't have the cooldowns for it, that really sucked. I made it harder for that class. At the same time, I heard a lot of reports about tanks just getting one shot when they solo. So it is pretty clear that they had to address Delves to some degree, but like how they're addressing it and what they're doing with it, it was just overall just a mess. And for my group, it was very unappealing, and it really killed a lot of the drive to actually play the one piece of content that we played the game for, the reason why we subscribed back to the game. Now, I did try the other 2 endgame routes, but I didn't really get too deep into them. Mythic Plus wasn't a thing while we were still playing, so yeah, we can only really do Mythic 0, which is the base version of it, without like things being scaled up a little higher with modifiers. But overall, the dungeon that they introduced in the expansion, I actually really enjoyed, besides the one where we had to fly around. It was kind of a mess to coordinate, and just kind of people did the wrong thing a lot of times. I heard they hotfixed it quite a bit or changed it up a little bit, but I don't know. Personally, that is, I just haven't done it after that. And then when it comes to raiding, I actually only did Raid Finder because I just don't have a raid group. I probably could get a raid group with my old friends if I really wanted to, but I'm gonna be honest, I just don't really want to right now. But Raid Finder is basically just a matchmaking version of the raids. It's very puggable, very friendly. Well, okay, it's very pug friendly. The players are not friendly. Out of the 6 bosses, there was really only 1 boss that required mechanics where you wiped. Though the first boss like basically just had vault and portals, which was pretty funny. I used to think Raid Finder was kind of like a really bad idea, but now I think it's actually just overall good for the game. And that might just be like a result of the perspective I've gained after being so hardcore into Lost Ark and just seeing how the casual community really is affected by the difficulty of Lost Ark. Which, in a similar vein, I guess they're also going to be adding a solo mode or like a story mode version of the final part of the raid. I think that's a little weird since Raid Finder is already so accessible, but hey, the more options the better. Overall, there's no changes or additions to the game that I think was really bad for the game besides like the 3-day early Epic Edition players. I think early access in MMOs is just bad. Warbands again are one of the greatest things they've done to the game. The only problem with it is that they didn't add it sooner. The overall concept of delves is great. Once they further figure out the identity, then we'll really know kind of the true future of it. I don't think it's the type of content that you should be inflating the HP to pad the time on, because even if the content is shorter, it's a content that you can only do a limited time every week. Limited in the sense that those keys that you get from the World Quest, the weekly stuff, those are limited. And again, you need those keys to open up the chest that has the valuable loot at the end of the delves. So since you have a limited amount of keys, you can only do a limited amount of delves that actually have really good value. But overall, none of us really want to keep our sub active just to hope that they actually kind of figure out what they want to do with delves. And for that reason, we quit. We all uninstalled. Well, okay, not all of us. One still has a sub active because he got a second month before we quit. I don't regret getting into the game and trying it out for a month. I think it was a pretty fun experience for what I had. Like, the only downside was that little part of delves. It was a decent experience, and hopefully, next time we are swindled into buying another expansion, maybe we'll do it in the middle while they kind of have things figured out a bit more then. So that'll be it for this video. Thanks for watching, like, sub, whatever, and let me know if you've been playing WoW. Or if you did, why you stopped. Well, just talk about WoW a little bit. I'm also convinced that the video game industry is just out there trying to normalize foot fetishes.